Do you ever get to the end of your workday and your brain, I refer to as feeling fried, like it's mushy, it's hazy, and you don't really understand why? I remember recently I'd gotten to the end of the workday and I came downstairs and I looked at Steven and I just said, my brain feels fried. I can't make another decision. I just need to go off, go on a walk, take some me time. And even after I'd done that, I still felt like this overwhelming sense of what just happened? Why do I feel this way?
Now, moms, parents, you definitely have felt this way. I feel like you put the kids down for bed and afterwards you are done. DONE. It's like, no, don't bring me any decisions. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to book the flight. I just want to Netflix. I want to tune out. I want to go to bed. If you've ever had one of those days, we have a solution for you. And this was an aha moment that we've started to dig into with our team, with ourselves personally. We actually were recently at a mastermind and something on this topic was taught about. And it was like a light bulb went off that connected all the dots. And we're going to share it with you today. So how to totally remove that mental fatigue from your life. And it comes down to 3 words: reduce the switching. Okay. This is something that was taught on in this mastermind. We paid a bunch of money to get our whole team in this mastermind. They did all this training on how to work more efficiently, more effectiveness as a team. And they taught us about something called the switching cost. The switching cost is the cost of switching tasks during your day. Now, they've done research on this, and actually you might be switching from one thing in your business to another. And when I'm talking about switching, we're talking about like switching kind of the way you think. Like, let's say you're doing a bunch of admin stuff. You're preparing your taxes, right? That's kind of like one brain wave, like you're collecting tax documents for your CPA, right? Then all of a sudden you switch to doing something creative. Now you're on TikTok, you're having to write copy or come up with a creative hook, right? Those are 2 totally different ways you're using your brain. And so when you switch between those, there's a cost between switching through those tasks. And what the facilitator of this mastermind was teaching us was this. They've done studies on this. And when you switch from one thing to another like that, and it's such a big shift, your brain actually takes 20 to sometimes up to 40 minutes to actually transition. You might go from one meeting to another, but your brain, and you might physically be in that second meeting, but your brain is taking time to transition. And so when you have one of those days, like Chelsea mentioned, where you just feel fried at the end of the day, it's typically not because you did a lot that day. It's because you switched a lot. And this was the breakthrough that we had.
And as moms, you do switch a lot. Like I'm making breakfast with Kaizen, I'm making my coffee, and then I'm getting ready for this meeting, and then I'm nursing Ollie to sleep, and then I'm back in a meeting, and then I'm creating content, and then I'm with Kaizen again at the park. And that is a lot of switching. And sometimes I do purposefully have that in my day based on like how I want to show up for the boys and how I want to show up in my business. But for me, it was really freeing to have language around why sometimes at the end of my day, I felt like I refer to it as brain fog and like my brain was fried. And so this has allowed me to be more strategic with my days. And sometimes there are days where we are switching from one piece of content to a different kind of piece of content to more emotional to connecting, a lot of output when we're with team. And so I'm just more aware of what my day looks like. And if I need to plan in something at the end of the day that's more life-giving or gets me outside on a walk to clear my mind, like I schedule that in advance.
So what we're talking about today on the podcast is how to be kind to your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Be kind to your mind and develop a system for it works for you. Because what works for me doesn't work for Chelsea. What works for her doesn't work for me. And what works for us might not work for you. This is about you. And we've done previous episodes on how to schedule a family meeting and how to design your dream week. And so this is like an iteration of that topic, but we've come up with a 3-step process. We took what was taught to us in this mastermind, kind of modified it for our own Rainmaker community. And this is what we've come up with to really help you reduce switching. Grab your notes or your digital equivalent, take notes on this, because if you take action on this, you're going to get to the end of your days and you're going to feel like, wow, I was kind to my mind today. And I actually feel like I have some life after the day's deeds are done. Okay, so write down 1, give it a big circle. The first thing you need to do is you got to figure out what you're doing with your time. And so what worked for me, I'm just sharing what worked for me, even though I hated it when someone asked me to do it, was I did a time journal. Okay, a time journal is like a food journal. Food journal, you just write down everything you eat. A time journal, you write down everything you do in your life, your business, your work, your career, with your kids. For 1 week, just write down every single thing you do. Grab a piece of paper, grab a notebook, and literally just write down 15 minutes, I did this. 20 minutes, I did this. It's annoying. I know I fought this so hard when someone asked me to do this, someone we were working with. But when I did this, it was amazing what it revealed. And that moves us to step two, which once you look at your week, your time journal that you've done, you can actually start to identify buckets of tasks that are very similar. Like, ooh, that's a family bucket, right? Ooh, that's an admin kind of minded bucket. Ooh, that's a creative bucket, right? You can start identifying these buckets. And you might, when you start doing this, you're like, wow, I got creative stuff on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Admin stuff on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Family stuff on Monday, Tuesday. Okay, you get the picture, right? And that's why you're not being kind to your mind. You're feeling frazzled because you're trying to switch all day long.
And when we looked at those buckets, we saw that there are certain days that we wanted to assign those buckets to so that there wasn't so much switching costs. So today, when we're recording this episode, it's on a Tuesday. That is a heavy content day for both Steven and I. That's a day that I'm shooting content for our TikTok and our Instagram and any kind of ad copy that our ad and social media teams need. It's happening on that day. That's also the day that we are recording podcast episodes, whether it's one like this or that we stack and have all of our podcast guests on. It's also the day that we go live inside of our Facebook groups and give value. So I know that on Tuesday, I'm going to be on camera for most of the day. And it's a busy day for me, but it's very much specific and centered around content.
And once we had that boundary, it kind of gave freedom to say no to things on that day that didn't fit within that mental bucket. And this has given us a lot of momentum on those days. So at the end of the day, we've been kind to our mind and there's peace. Number three is knowing the style of work that's going to take for that bucket. Because certain things, there's like kind of different styles of work. And this is something this master trainer is teaching our whole team. Some things in your business, your life, it's kind of like shallow work. It's kind of, they call this like the front of the store. Like you're at the desk and you're just being responsive. Like you're on Slack, you're just answering things. Like your kids are coming in and out. That's like shallow work because it's just, you don't have to think in advance. You're just there and you're responding, you're reacting to what's happening. A lot of people live there, but that's a lot of switching costs. Then there's focus work. You could think of this like the coffee shop time. Okay. The coffee shop time is when, you may have a 2 hour block where you're really focused on that one thing, right? There may be a couple distractions here and there, but you're pretty focused on that one thing. And when you start identifying buckets, you might take something that you need really a 2 hour focus session on, and you're trying to do it in the nooks and crannies. And you just go, hey, Thursday, I see a window. I'm going to block 2 hours. I'm going to get childcare. I'm going to lean into that thing. And then the third work modality is deep work. And this
Mhm.
is really that like probably 2 to 4 hour block of time where you got that bigger project, that bigger vision, and you got to just really just take time to lean into this thing. And they taught us how to really prepare for a deep work session. And I've started scheduling these in. Our team has started scheduling these in. And once you have the buckets, you can identify, ooh, there's a big bucket here of stuff. And I just need one deep work session to get it done or two deep work sessions. You start to schedule it in the calendar. You prime yourself for it. Like you do a priming ritual for it, right? What we mean by that is you get your coffee, you get your snacks, you get everything ready for that project in advance. You don't waste
Mhm.
time on the 4 hours. You do it the night before. You have all the documents, you get all the stuff. Let's say you're trying to knock out your taxes and get your stuff for your CPA. You get it all ready in advance in a little focused work session. And then during the deep work session, you knock it out. Maybe you're trying to write the book, you get all your research together. Ahead of time, you have your snack, you have your coffee, you
Mhm.
have a space. They even talked about this thing, and I think this is our team's favorite, called the grand gesture, where
Yes.
maybe you have this deep work, you're trying to write the book, and a grand gesture is like, why don't you book an Airbnb across town, right?
Mhm.
And just go do something grand to like be like, I'm gonna do this thing. You have everything ready and you get it done. And so these three different work modalities, like knowing like when you look at your buckets, what are these? Is it shallow work? Is it focus work? Is it deep work? And then you could schedule it in and make sure you are scheduling your life around that as well, right? Because you might need support and you might need to call your parents to come over, hang with the kids. So you can do a deep work session and not just try to squeeze that deep work into the nooks and crannies of
Mhm.
your life, which is causing the switching costs, which is causing you to be not kind to your mind, which is causing the overwhelm and the anxiety and that frazzleness that we are all too familiar with.
And I want to give just a couple examples of this past week because I feel like Because I feel like overall I did a really good job of having buckets, doing grand gestures, and I felt like I've been really kind to my mind this week specifically. So here's a great example for you. Monday, I had two different content meetings. One was for my own personal Instagram, and then the other was for Rainmakers. So it was like a similar bucket of time that I used for that. And then right after that, I packed up all of my work things that I needed, which included my laptop, a charger, a pen, my notebook of to dos that I take with me everywhere. I put it in this basket and I literally walk from my house to my photo studio that I use. And my photo studio is this place that makes me feel really happy. It's clean, it's away from the boys. Steven is oftentimes on Zoom meetings all day, and I just sometimes need peace and quiet. And so I will walk. I call this my commuter bag that I will take with me with my
It's like
water.
50 feet from the house.
Yeah, but I go on my little work commute, and I take with me my coffee, my water bottle, and a snack. And I go out there and I do deep work. And for me right now, deep work is reviewing content for my new website that I'm going to be launching soon and also for social media. And it just allows me deep thinking space because I was finding before I would get back these revisions that I needed to make and I was trying to squeeze it in like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, and I just felt like I was never moving the ball in the right direction. So I did that, and then what I did at the end of my workday on Monday before I headed back inside to be with the boys, I just gave myself like 5 minutes. And this was kind of like my grand gesture for myself that was being kind to my mind. I just like journaled and I just sat and I thought about like if there's any other tasks, cascading tasks that came out of my work session that need to get done, I wrote them down. I took some deep breaths and I was just like, it's going to be okay. Like I'm walking back into the boys and I'm not carrying work with me.
Mm.
And so that has really allowed me. And I think moms need that, especially when we're in transition, because who knows what I'm coming into in the house. And I think if you're a working professional, you could easily do this in your car where you tell your spouse or your nanny or your babysitter, hey, I'm going to be an extra 5 minutes today because I need to create that grand gesture, that space in between work and family. And it's
Mm.
really healthy to do that. I'll oftentimes sit in the car and like go through like a couple like social media messages really quickly. And I'll take a pause and then I'll go inside and I'll be like, I'm not touching my phone right now. And that's been really helpful. And then today, again, is Tuesday and it's been all content. We had one meeting with our team that was a little bit more switching costs because that had to do with planning, but then it was right into creating content for our new coaching students coming in
Mhm.
and podcasting and going live. And so, yes, those are in some ways like switching a little bit as far as the type of content. It is still all content, it is still all on camera. If you're watching us on YouTube, like we are in the same location for most of the day. Obviously, we got lunch and everything. And for our grand gesture, we got some coffee. I got iced coffee. Steven got a hot coffee
Cheers.
just because, yeah, cheers, because we wanted to. And so, and now as we are wrapping up this podcast, before I transition to the boys, I will once again do that 5 minute pause of making sure everything is good to go. So I'm not thinking about it while I'm trying to be with the boys. So I feel like that's a great example of my work week because Monday and Tuesday are my really heavy days.
Mm. I love what you said there, Chelsea, because we said 3 steps, but I'm going to say that's a fourth bonus step of, having that transition. Because sometimes
Hmm.
you have a big task, you want to write the book, right? And 1 4 hour deep work session, you're not going to complete the whole book,
Yeah.
but having a way to like maybe at the end of the session, put another deep work session on the calendar and turn
Hmm.
it off, and be like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm going to shut this book, I'm going to shut this task down, but I'm not going to forget it. But that way you're not thinking about it at night when you're with the
Hmm.
kids, with the
Yeah.
family, you're not carrying that stuff with you. And it just, again, it's just being kind to your mind.
Yeah. And I think as moms, it's really important to address this because when you are with your kids, you are switching all the time from errands to cleaning up to nap time or getting your
Mhm.
kids off to school, like whatever it is. And I think for me, it gave me a lot of freedom to just understand what was happening and why sometimes at the end of the day, I was feeling more overwhelmed and exhausted. And as much as I could, like even if you could structure like a day or 2 days a week that are like your play date dates or the days that you're just going to be at home, I think that would even be
Mhm.
super helpful for moms to plan as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And this applies not just to your business, your family. Maybe
Hmm.
there's, yeah, like Chelsea said, more creative fun with the family days and like
Mm.
buckets for that. So as you do your time journal, these things are going to start to reveal themselves to you. And we just want to be transparent with you. This is not a perfect process.
No,
Even though
not at
Tuesdays,
all.
like we do have a bucket, like we should just play the replay of us last Tuesday at the end of the day because we stacked almost too much in that
Yeah.
bucket. And it was like just ending the podcast. We had to like record one last sentence and it was like the world was ending. Right. And
Because
so,
my brain was
yeah,
so
Chelsea was
fried.
fried. Chelsea was super fried. And I've been there as well. And so you know yourself in this process and give yourself grace in the process because it takes time to figure this out. And so me and Chelsea are constantly analyzing like, how are you feeling? How am I feeling? Like we have our family meeting, right? I do this thing now. I call it the vibe of the week. Like, how was this
Mhm.
week? And so I do this with my executive assistant. And at the end of the week, I have a little reminder golf that says, what was your vibe of the week?
Mm.
And so like I try to get a 10 every week. And then I rate the week 0 out of 10. And then I say why, right? And so like that helps me kind of just self-analyze what made this an awesome week versus what made this maybe not as awesome a week. And
Mm.
then I can do more of the awesome and less of the not awesome. And
Mhm.
same thing with Chelsea. I mean, you've heard
Yeah.
me do that to you at night where you're just like, I feel like overwhelmed. It's like things are crazy. I'm like, okay, let's look at the day. What happened? Like
Mhm.
what was outside of, this dream week we designed or,
Mhm.
was there too much switching? Like we're kind of like, again, I'm not trying to just fix it. Sometimes I do sit with you in the heart and I'm like, hey, this sounds hard, babe. But like sometimes like it's like, oh, you just needed some more solo time. Like, how can
Mhm.
I support you in that? Like, I
Mm.
know I've been having a lot of kind of solo night stuff that I've been
Mhm.
doing lately. And I was like, Chelsea was like, I need some of that. Right. And so
Mhm.
I just was like, hey, I booked you a
Yeah.
Pilates session.
It was
I'll take the
amazing.
boys, you go. Cause I know she needs that. Right.
Mhm.
And so as partners who are rooting for each other, you got to like check in with each other
Mhm.
and modify this and sometimes call each other out like, hey, I see you doing a lot of this, like, can we maybe reduce that so you're not feeling as frazzled,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? We want to protect each other and we want to call each other up to a higher level.
Yeah. And sometimes this means saying no to really good things. Um, as my Monday and Tuesdays are typically pretty stacked now, I'm finding that I need days later in the week where I literally have nothing planned except for maybe like a fun little errand with the boys in the morning. But I don't want to have a friend date. I don't want to have a coffee date planned because I feel like early in my week that I have a lot going on and I don't want to rush from one thing to the next. So I've actually decided to like cut something out of my life that is good and it is connecting with other people, which I care about. But just right now in this season, it feels like just one extra thing and it should feel like a life giving thing. And it's just too much. And so I'm just saying, like, I love all you people that I was doing this event with, but I'm going to step back for a
Mhm.
season because my bandwidth, I will overextend myself if I'm doing this.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
I
The
think
other
it's,
thing I think we've learned too is like, we do have values of connecting with other people. But when we started doing this, like looking at our time, it was like, whoa, like we could actually kind of combine some things too,
mhm,
right? So like, for example, we go to farmers market typically every Saturday and grab some groceries and kind of do a coffee thing in the morning. It's like our family like thing we do on Saturdays,
mhm.
but it's also a great time to invite a friend in
Yeah.
and do it with a friend instead of scheduling another additional play day
Yeah.
or another come over to our dinner, house for dinner. Yes, while we love doing those things,
Mhm.
it's kind of easier to just roll people into what you're already doing,
Mhm.
And so sometimes people are like, hey, I'd love to connect with you guys and meet up. And I'm like, in this season, like
Mm.
we can't say yes to everything like that,
Yeah.
but we are doing these things. So hey,
Come
come to
join
church
us.
on Sunday. Like, well, you
Yeah.
can hang out with us there. We're going there every week, like, so like just roll people into what you're already doing and you can maximize, the things that you value without overextending your
Yeah.
time.
Mhm. That's good.
All right. I think that's enough for you right
To
now.
go take
Okay. Be
action.
kind to your mind.
Yes.
Um, Way to go listening to this podcast. You're in the creative zone. You might have to switch to something else, and that's okay.
Mhm.
This is a process, but if you want to take action on this, we highly recommend this. We're actually recommending this to all new Rainmakers that come into our program. So if you're in our program, this is something new students are getting, and you're getting it right now if you're listening to this. And so do this, do the time journal. Okay. Look at it, create the
Mhm.
buckets. You might even identify stuff that you shouldn't be doing. You can eliminate, delegate, you can automate on that list. And then look at scheduling it in, right? Whether it's shallow work, focus work, deep work. And then, like Chelsea said, have a transition
Mhm.
plan so that you can balance us all and be kind to your mind.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.